Well, welcome to the Pool Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Greg Villafania, and today we've got two very special guests from Fluidra. We've got Mark and Brad. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Brad, you're no stranger to the show. It's been a little while, but it's good to see your face again.
Good to see you too. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you're all clean shaven. Last time I seen you, you had a beard. You look like 10 years younger.
Yeah, typical pandemic story, just kind of let it all go. And then post-pandemic, time to get back in shape and clean up the appearance.
I hear you on that. So why don't you both introduce yourselves and your role with Fluidra?
Sure, I can kick us off and then I'll pass it off to Mark. But Brad Parker here, Vice President of Marketing, oversee a lot of the communications activities, campaigns, websites, all that kind of stuff, and also take point on our sustainable products initiative, which is why I'm here talking to you today.
And I'm Mark Baukman. I'm the Vice President of Engineering for North America. So my team does all the engineering, product development for the business in North America.
Thanks, guys. Well, like you said, we're going to be talking about sustainability today, and that's a huge thing. I know that word flies around a lot because anybody can really say that they're sustainable, but for a legitimate company like Fluidra that's got a bunch of other brands below it, that's a huge investment to go all in. So why don't we kind of just start from the top? What is Fluidra's philosophy on sustainability?
Our concept of sustainability is twofold. There's the environmental dimension, which relates to how we do business internally in a way that mitigates and minimizes the footprint, the impact we have on the environment around us, regardless of the communities we're operating in on a global scale. So there's kind of that environmental ethical component where we want to do business in the right way. There's also the component where we want to do business in the right way because it will lead to a sustainable business going forward so that we can ensure that the things we do now help make sure we're in business 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? That we're paying attention to where consumers are at, what they care about when they consider product purchases or consider kind of whether or not they build a pool. We want to make sure that we're taking into account the policy environment, right? Because that's ever changing and very dynamic. And we want to make sure we're proactively driving change internally versus putting ourselves in a position where we're not paying attention to consumers, to policies, to perceptions of pools out there. And then we're kind of forced to react and make change. We want to kind of get ahead of this and make sure that we're building a company that does business the right way, but one that also really is around for the long haul.
Right. And you guys are always on the cutting edge of, things that are new, not even just sustainability, but in technology and all types of things. I mean, how does this align with your company's overall mission and values?
I mean, this is part of it, right? As we kind of put pressure on ourselves to innovate across the board, to kind of put ourselves in a position that we're geared for success. You try to innovate in terms of the programs we put out there, the policies we put out there, the products we put out there. And sustainability is a dimension of that, right? Make sure that that's one of the factors we're considering as we determine who we do business with, who we source materials from, what our supply chain looks like, what products do we develop, and how do we develop them. So it's an integral component to just kind of the general way in which we consider our business and consider what's needed out there in terms of the pool.
Sure. What's your take on that, Mark?
Yeah, remember our mission is to develop the perfect pool experience for a customer broken down. And so from a customer perspective, we want to make sure that they're saving energy, obviously that they've got safe compliance products, and that we help build an industry that will be around for 20 or 30 years. And as we face water restrictions, as we face gas restrictions, as we face things like that come at us, I think something Brad maybe didn't quite touch on yet is from our manufacturing footprint. Fluidra's got a very, very large global manufacturing footprint. And so by converting those factories over to renewable solar power, things like that. To be saving water in our manufacturing process is another aspect that we do, not just on products and how the product is used, but also up the supply chain in our pretty expansive global manufacturing footprint.
Right. And, what's inspired the company to focus on sustainability, and how's this evolved over time?
I think, if you kind of talk about really what triggered the inspiration and a commitment to this, I think it's important to recognize, like I said, we're a values-based company. We want to do business the right way, but at the same time, we're also a pragmatic company. So there's key things just about the market we operate in and the policy environment we operate in, which I think are really, you need to be paying attention to so that you drive change internally before you're forced to externally. So, number one, let's just talk about consumers real quick, right? Around us, you see accelerated adoption of rooftop solar. You see accelerated adoption of electric cars. Consumer attitudes are shifting. A couple of years ago, we did a research project with 1,000 pool owners, across California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, the Northeast, key pool markets. And we asked a lot of questions around this topic of sustainability to find out, do they care, what they care about? And what you really find is that in the simple question of if all things being equal, costs being equal, would you prefer a environmentally friendly product? Over 70% of consumers said they would. Top thing they care about is reducing chemicals in their pool. Followed quickly by energy efficiency to save money, followed right after that by saving water because they're very aware of how much water they dump into their pool to offset evaporation and splash out and other places water disappears. So consumers are already going there, and industries around us are facilitating that kind of change in attitude. So just makes sense that a company would really kind of put focus on it. Second thing going on, which Mark just mentioned, was the policy environment, right? So if you look around, just in recent history, DOE is forced to shift from standard pumps to variable speed technology. The DOE is also forced to shift from incandescent lighting to LED. We know that there's discussions on the table in California around decarbonization. There's refrigerant discussions that might affect heat pumps. There's water restrictions in Las Vegas that limit the size of the pool. So this is going on around us real time, and we've already seen it start happening. So it just makes sense that, if you're a business and you want to be in business for a long term, whether you're a manufacturer, a pool builder, a pool servicer, this is an area you're going to want to start paying attention to on the assumption that consumers are going to start asking questions and that they're already open to the discussion, as well as policy environment's going to force a shift. So, be prepared, be ready for it. And in fact, put yourself in a position where you're driving that change versus just reacting to it.
Right. And, as these policies are getting more strict or they're evolving, I'm assuming that if you don't meet, whatever's in that policy, it could very well stop manufacturing. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's correct. Right.
that'd be a risk, right? Decarbonization. If we're told at the federal, state, local level that gas appliances in the backyard are no longer allowable, then that's a major restriction or ban on a certain part of our business.
And that's
That
something our pool industry has always been used to following, right? We've had VGB and things that throughout really the pool history, there's been compliance and certification of regulatory bodies looking out for NSF or CSA on heaters. We probably in the last say 8 to 10 years have spent a lot more time following the bigger picture trends of, call it gas or demand response or water restrictions, probably taking us up out of the pool focus specifically and into a wider range of environmental and nationwide non-pool related regulatory bodies, which for us makes us have to spend more time making sure we're involved in those agencies and regulations and what's happening, and frankly hire more resources and make sure that we're on top of all those things as it affects the pool industry and our company.
Yeah. And as time changes, I'm assuming that these policies can happen quicker than they used to. I mean, you're talking about, the VGB covers, there's probably a handful of things we can think of, over a course of 40, 50 years. But it seems like now, as a homeowner is getting hip to all this new technology in the house and outside of the house, that, we're always going to get, roped in and having to be compliant as some of the other pieces of the house and backyard.
Yeah, and I think our industry has gotten a lot more connected to what's happening in the rest of your home. So whereas again, I've been around our company for 26 years. If you go back a certain amount of time, what was going on in the home was pretty different than what was going on in the pool. Now I can, not so much sustainability, but from a regulatory perspective, there's things on how we handle customers' data and how connected products work and cybersecurity, and we make all those products, and so we have to be kind of on the forefront of how mobile apps work and how they keep your data and what options we give homeowners, and those are things that even go back 10, especially 15 to 20 years ago that in this industry we generally didn't have to pay attention to or deal with, but it's really become much more tied in with things that are moving very quickly. Those things outside of our industry that are connected to all those cybersecurity and mobile apps and other type of regulations are used to working on a much faster life cycle pace on their products, and they're redesigning something every 2 years for new connectivity anyways, but we are catching up with those things and working hand in hand with those type of regulations.
Definitely. And I was going to say something after you had said what you said, Brad. And what I was getting at with that statement or question is, if a company isn't constantly trying to get better and innovate, then you very well might not be compliant. And if you're not compliant, manufacturing stops, then the pool professional isn't going to have equipment, especially the professionals that are used to using, say, your pump, heater, filter, whatever it may be. Like that's huge because, a lot of companies are loyal to a product and a brand. And if that comes to a halt, I mean, we saw it during the pandemic, what that looks like, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I think there's a big responsibility on the manufacturers in this kind of equation to like be on top of it, understand what's coming, understand what trends are out there that we should be chasing that help drive us towards a more sustainable pool. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of opportunity as an industry for us to get a bit more consolidated in the way we approach this topic. So we're really speaking with one voice. We're kind of a little bit more lock and step versus multiple manufacturers with kind of different approaches, no clear kind of idea of where the pool pros fit into this overall. Because we all want to make the right decisions that keep the industry healthy, and we all want people, when they think about a pool, to not think about an energy water consuming thing in the backyard. They think about this kind of cutting edge, like fun body of water to play in that's healthy. It brings people together. You want that kind of the right perception to be around to help continue to drive demand for people to, put in a new pool, upgrade their existing pool, don't bury it, remodel it, upgrade equipment, add automation, do all the stuff that makes it better. That's kind of how we can kind of, like you're saying, stay on the forefront, trying to kind of think 5-10 years down the road. Because that's one of the roles we have to play in making sure that the market's healthy, consumer demand is healthy, and also the business of the pool servicers, the pool builders, the remodelers, renovators also stay healthy.
Very good. And, what are the primary environmental challenges that, you guys are currently addressing?
Yeah, I could take maybe that one. As a whole, our global company is focused on some some key things. We started with the United Nations actually has a sustainable development goals, and they outline I think it's 17 different goals, kind of for the globe, kind of aspirational goals. And some of them that we thought that really speak to our world is water, the sanitization of water, making sure that water's safe to drink, to be in, to be around, and also the responsible consumption in general, clean energy. Those are some of the one out of those 17s that really kind of speak to us. As we take it down to kind of specifically to pools, the three that we're mainly focused on are water conservation, energy conservation, and carbon footprint, and chemicals. Chemicals kind of fits into that. Not necessarily one of the ones that UN called out, but in the pool world, the reduction of chemicals and dumping chemicals into your pool is one that we're focusing on as well. We have another one that's a little bit more complicated. It's around the recyclability of the raw materials that we use and how easy it is to service. So they call it product circularity, and product circularity has a bunch of subcategories underneath it. So that one's probably a little bit harder for users and owners of pools to understand. It's a little bit more in the back end, but for us, the easy ones for us to remember are water conservation, energy conservation, and chemical use reduction.
Very good. I mean, what's Fluidra doing to reduce, those things like emissions, waste, resource consumption?
There's a variety of programs we have in place that focus on reuse and recycle of various resources, whether that's water, energy, or just the amount of kind of waste we send to the landfill versus what we're able to kind of find a secondary purpose for. But internally, whether you look at manufacturing sites, where I'd say right now a big focus is bringing on clean energy. So utilizing renewable energy versus just kind of standard energy off the grid. Currently, we're at actually about 83% across our manufacturing sites and use of renewables. That's kind of a big one when it comes to sort of our manufacturing footprint. If you look at office locations where it's more people in kind of carrying out administrative functions, sort of like myself and Mark, a lot of emphasis on recycling programs, on reducing waste, on water management, bringing on technologies into the facilities that help us kind of just reduce our overall footprint. But whether you're talking about sourcing, supply chain, facilities, product development, there's a pretty broad scope, programs across the board that are addressing kind of all these different places where we identify an impact we have on the communities we work within.
Right. And I keep hearing about all this. It sounds like a huge investment. It's very expensive to, make a company that sustainable, because I'm assuming you're talking about, all the brands that are under Fluidra that are following that same, sustainable mission.
Yeah, this is company wide. So for us, we have big offices in throughout Europe, in Australia, South Africa, Canada, here in the U.S., manufacturing sites, in Asia, Mexico, I mean, all over the place. So this is a global movement for us, a global initiative. We've invested with hiring dedicated resources that this is what they do every day. They wake up, they kind of are identifying where do we got issues we need to address, how do we address them, how do we communicate it, how do we kind of roll out programs. You're dealing with different rules and regulations depending on the country you're acting in, so there's a lot of complexity there, but it's a massive commitment, and it's kind of part of the mission of creating that perfect pool experience in a responsible manner.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of us take for granted, a lot of products and supplies, especially, making that switch to be sustainable. And if you don't understand, companies don't necessarily have to do it. I mean, like you said, that's a risk that you take in doing it or not doing it, or what direction you go in. But I do it. I think a lot of people do it. You do take it for granted, and I do think it's important. It doesn't really matter what your motive is, because I also think even if you didn't care about the environment, I think that the homeowner, the person that has a swimming pool, I think they genuinely care about those types of things. And if you don't believe me, every next door group I've ever been in, California, Nevada, everywhere, those are real homeowners with pools having real conversations. And that is like at the forefront of everything they're talking about with pools. And I think they're trying to make professionals more accountable. And I think this is something that definitely needs to be taken more seriously.
Yeah, I think, for me personally, as kind of the marketing person here at Fluidra in North America, I'm willing to place a big bet that if I have a product out there and consumer is choosing between two products, and one product says, hey, this was produced with renewable energy. By the way, it's more energy efficient, saves you $55 a month. By the way, this can help reduce your chemical load in your pool and reduce chlorine by X%. I'm confident over time, right, that could be that tipping point for a consumer's decision, assuming price is equal and performance isn't sacrificed in the process, depending on the product. But it is important. It'll increasingly be more important. It's we're investing for the future, and we're investing and placing our bets that increasingly this will be a decision point people are making when they're deciding. In some cases, Greg, it's like not even just a product decision. It's, man, I got this big backyard. Do I want a pool? And when they say pool to themselves, are they thinking water consumption, energy consumption? It's expensive, it's a hassle. Or are they thinking fun, family, friends, health, relaxation, easy to manage, sustainable, right? And obviously you want them to be working through that second catalog of terms, so they're willing to pony up, what will likely be 150 to 200K for a nice backyard experience.
Definitely. It's nice when you can also, put it up there with, somebody that has a Tesla or any other, product that might be trying to be, sustainable. Is, this is out of sight, out of mind, but you can compare it to one of these other things on your property or even your vehicle. And I think that they can relate to that, because, sometimes it's not always that easy to homeowners, like understanding like how the pool works and, all those different things. But if you can ensure them that, you're going to save on electricity and water consumption, and, this company, that's part of their values is having sustainable products. People love that stuff.
Yeah, I know that, even hiring people to work with us, work for Fluidra, one of the critical things we really emphasize is we are a values-based company. We care about our customers. We care about homeowners. We care about our employees. We care about the way we do business. That is a differentiator, right? Because you're not just in it for the cold hard cash. You're doing it in a manner that makes it different to be a part of this company, right? So you want to figure out how you kind of get that sort of internal thinking and put it out there in your products and the pools you kind of those products participate in, and that's a way we can the sustainability is a way we can sort of externalize that sense of value, that sense of trust we're trying to build through our pros with the homeowners.
Yeah, and I have to assume that there's a lot of technology involved in what you're all doing. Have you leveraged tech to innovate, driving all of this?
Yeah, there's no kind of magic silver bullet that's going to be this one specific tech or this one specific product that's going to kind of convert us from a non-sustainable pool or industry into something that is sustainable. There's a just thinking about the things I said before between water savings and chemical savings and energy savings. Those are pretty diverse. Even just those three things are fairly diverse. But a lot of the things we've done already and that are currently on the market, if you start with something like a cover for a pool, a cover for a pool has historically been kind of looking at as a safety cover. I mean, often people call them safety covers, right? But a complete, closed, whether it's automated cover or a non-automated cover, it really saves a ton of evaporation and therefore the water savings. So especially we're here in Southern California, we don't get a whole lot of rain. It's important to conserve what we do get and the water resources that we have. And it's proven to use less water to help with chemical usage. So again, covers have been around a long time, not necessarily everybody's first thought. And I'm going to build a great, $200,000 backyard experience and I'm going to cover it up. But our job is to change that perception and to make it truly a sustainable product. That's what's on the forefront of people's minds. Variable speed pumps are very well kind of known and documented at this point. There's a lot of technology in variable speed pumps. There's everyone kind of thinks there's single speed and variable speed. There's a lot of different technologies behind the variable speed, a lot of different efficiencies, a lot of different levels of sustainability behind the scenes on those. LED lights are a good one. Brad mentioned before, right? We've typically gone more to LED lights because we want the more full colored experience and things like that, so I think that's a great example of where we get a much more sustainable energy saving product and the homeowner gets a better experience. That's what they want. They expect, to be able to change the color of their pool if they can change the color of a light bulb in their home. So those are, I think the last one I'll touch on is the chemical savings we mentioned before and having products that are kind of alternatives to dumping chemicals in the pool. Natural sanitizers like the Nature 2 product we have that allow you to use less chemicals, less chlorine. The UV AOP systems that we have. So we're using UV, UV light. We've got ozone systems now. AOP kind of brings those together. So again, those are an upsell on today's pool, but we think that down the road, that's going to be the entry level pool is going to have those type of products that save chemicals over time. And for a while, if the homeowner only cares about a direct chemical payback, maybe that pitch is a little tough. But I think over time that will get, as technology gets more mature, prices tend to come down. And chemical prices have historically been going up. So maybe we'll see a time when an AOP system is kind of a standard pool, and that makes that pool more environmentally friendly.
Do you think it's a huge advantage being in the California market because, it's pretty strict and there's a lot of people that want sustainable products, not just swimming pool related, but it's probably good for you guys being where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think that being such a huge pool market, that it's an advantage for us to be here and to look, a couple things. One, we probably stay a little closer to the regulations and what's going on with CEC, the California Energy Commission, and they tend to, I won't say fortunately or unfortunately, but they tend to lead the country, and what they kind of lead with, a lot of the rest of the country tends to follow. And so we're probably a little closer to that of being out here out west. But so I think if we were further away, it'd be a little harder for that. But also, there's a lot of people on our staff, in our leadership team that we live in California and we own pools. So we're able to kind of directly correlate, when we're working on something and we can save a little bit of energy or make it run a little bit more efficient, we're paying 45 cents a kilowatt for power. And if I'm somewhere else that I'm paying, 7 cents a kilowatt, maybe I don't think about that or push that project as hard. And so I think that it's sometimes a little painful to live in California for a few reasons, but I think it is a benefit as far as being on the forefront of what's happening with regulations and the sensitivity maybe to what's happening. And we just need to obviously have a full nationwide view and not load extra costs into product for the whole country that maybe only California cares about for now. And so we can be on the forefront of that, but also have a nationwide view.
Yeah. Maybe you guys could figure out a way to get that freeway to be a little bit more efficient.
Exactly. Maybe lower taxes while we're at it.
Yeah. efficiency all the way around.
We're working on flying cars too. We didn't mention that. We're going to open up a new business division.
Love it. We do that. I'm moving to California. Let's go. So, how do you determine what's going to be sustainable and what's not? Because I have to assume that there's some products that maybe aren't sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk back to the start. Maybe I'll take the front end, Brad. You can take the back.
Yeah.
From the new product development perspective, we've actually built sustainability into our process. So we've got a very robust product development process that starts up front with ideation and business plans with the marketing and the engineering teams working together. Some things we kind of know what we need to do, so we go do it. Some things take months or years worth of research to come up with the product. And so we've hired people on staff that their job is to focus on sustainability, if you can believe it or not. There are product sustainability engineers, and we actually have those on staff now. And so their job is to help, way up front in a product development process. They are involved with, helping us drive, should this product be sustainable or not? Is it close? But if we do these things, it will be, especially our goals around chemical, water, and energy savings. And then honestly, to help us track that and keep touch with it all throughout the product, to make sure that throughout any development product features come and go and things have to be compromised for various reasons, but to make sure that we don't compromise the sustainable part of that. And that's something you go back 5 years ago, we just didn't do. That wasn't on our radar. So I can now sort my whole NPD funnel by products that will save energy or will save water or will save chemicals or are on the product circularity matrix. And that's, again, something that by measuring it, we can focus on it, we can improve on it, and we can keep that front and center to the rest of the business. And the overall business has goals around products as they're released, and our kind of overarching Fluidra sustainable goals involve product and the products that we bring to market.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier, Greg, about the term sustainable, and the way we approach it here. I think we recognize you got to be careful with it and be clear about how you define it, because as consumers in our normal life, we know that if you're, I don't know, shopping for deodorants, cars, shoes, socks, apparel, whatever, you hear a lot of 100% natural, sustainably sourced, sustainable, eco-friendly, environmentally friendly. All these terms get kind of thrown around, and one thing we want to do is not do that. Be very disciplined with the way we talk about sustainability. So for us, and look, there's no clear, whether you look at our industry or adjacent industries or just other industries, there's no clear, a sustainable product does this. So what we did is we created our own classification system that starts with identifying where products have impact, right? And then from there, we kind of go back into our classification. So for example, one of the biggest places our products have impact is in the use phase, when they're out in market on a pool, consuming electricity, producing chemicals, and basically creating a footprint, right? So there you have energy efficiency, water conservation, chemical reduction is 3 criteria. Does a product meet one of them? The other one is in the manufacturing phase, right? When products are manufactured, are we offsetting that related footprint through renewable energy? So you have a manufacturing phase, and we're targeting carbon reduction. And then Mark mentioned earlier, there's this idea of a holistic view of a product, the total life cycle. So cradle to grave. Waste is created when products are thrown away and nothing's recycled, right? So how do we kind of look at the total life cycle? And you have this circularity criteria, which has a bunch of sub-criteria. So we've gotten pretty rigorous with how we classify what we count as sustainable, because we do market some of our products as products that contribute to a more sustainable pool. That's something we started in the last year, and you'll see us lean in there. And we want to be able to, if someone says, oh, you're greenwashing, how is that sustainable? We can say, look, here's our criteria. Here's what it needs. Here's the documentation and the facts that support that. And we can be very disciplined with our approach to it, since there's no objective. You don't call up a university and say, let me see your sustainability scorecard because we'd like to follow it. That doesn't exist. But we can certainly model one upon our own findings of where we have impact on the environment, and then work back from there to kind of have a clear classification system.
Right. And I imagine that, it's never finished. You're always going to have to be, pushing it as the environment changes. So does the product, and, how you're manufacturing things, because we don't know what the environment looks like in the future. We don't know what the weather's going to do, and all these different things factor into how these products are manufactured. So, and yeah, it's probably nonstop. That's why you have a team that's doing it full time.
Yeah, got to be flexible, got to be willing to change, be super agile. You could have a product category that we consider sustainable for certain reasons, and then maybe at some point we're talking to Mark about this awesome new technology they want to put in this product category, and all of a sudden that new technology makes it not sustainable because the energy source comes from somewhere else. And that changes the categorization. we gotta be honest and kind of with ourselves and transparent with our customers that, like, okay, this subset of product is, we no longer are going to call that sustainable because we can't, so that's kind of part and parcel of how you do it, but that's how you do it with transparency, right? You let people know how you classify something, and when it fits, awesome. Here's why. When it doesn't, here's why.
Right. And is there something on like all of the packaging? Is there like kind of a universal sustainability sort of stamp? Or are we talking it's like, Energy Star, and it has, some of these different things? Like, is there something on the products that people can see to see, what impact it's making?
There's for qualifying products, there will be those third-party validating stamps like a Energy Star. For something that's more specific to Fluidra's classification system, not yet, but I mean, it's a good question. It's one we're talking about, but you would not see us do something like a green leaf in a 100% sustainable type blanket statement. What you would see is some sort of abbreviated scorecard that ticks off, out of these 5 criteria, this one is energy efficient because it saves XYZ, or this one checks off water conservation because it accomplishes XYZ. So it'd probably be something a bit more concrete and specific, so it's clear to the consumer or the pool pro that it's not just a greenwash statement. It's a factual statement based on our results from studies and the evidence we have to support it.
Right. No biodegradable products yet, like biodegradable filters or anything?
So that's a little bit challenging in our industry since everything pretty much goes underwater. But
So yeah, it's biodegradable. It just takes 200 years, I promise. Just got to stick around to see it. Oh yeah. So what are some of the most, popular products, between all the brands that are probably the most sustainable?
yeah, I mentioned a couple of these before. Certainly covers, which not everybody kind of thinks of right away because you kind of either usually have one from when the pool is built or not. But it's actually one of them. I'm going to keep it at the top of that list because it's a huge water saver, right? And chemical reduction. Variable speed pumps we talked about, alternate sanitizers we mentioned before. Maybe a couple that people don't think about depending on where you're from in the country is cartridge filters. Again, we're very global. There's a lot of sand filters used overseas in a lot of the other Fluidra divisions. And it was something that, we had some debates internally on. And so we've got a very large product testing facility here in Carlsbad and in some other places. And we actually ran the test to say, by loading filters the exact same and by cleaning them a certain amount, and extrapolate that over a year, you actually save quite a bit of water throughout a year cleaning a cartridge filter. Which, let's be honest, we say, well, a sand filter has to be backwashed and a cartridge filter doesn't. Well, if you've cleaned a cartridge filter, it takes a lot of water in your front yard or your backyard spraying that thing down. So we literally ran a very practical, real world, multiple tests across multiple cartridges. And and when you do the math and extrapolate it out, it actually, cartridge filters do save quite a bit of money, or quite a bit of water versus sand. And another one's automation. All the big manufacturers have automation systems. And we don't maybe necessarily think that that's a really sustainable product because you plug it in, it uses electricity. But think of the scheduling that you're allowed to do, right? And even things like different times of the year, setting up schedules that automatically change, and just having much more control over either the RPMs that your pump runs or how the system works. And kind of now and in the future, the higher end systems can make decisions for you and maybe alert you when you're using too much power and tap into demand response grids and things like that. So connected products, automation are actually probably a very, very key kind of currently and in the future, a sustainable product that maybe isn't on the top of people's mind like variable speed pumps and LED lights, but it really allows your pool and your system to work much, much more efficiently and is a key focus for us.
Yeah, and I would think that, as these products get smarter, you have less user error, and if you're not having to manually change valves or do any number of things where you risk breaking the product, it's going to last longer. And yeah, that's less stuff you need in your backyard. So that's important too for automation.
Yeah, and even again, kind of maybe a little bit more future stuff, but back to the trade, back to the pool pro who's got to get in a truck and drive out to the site. The smarter we can make him, the more we can tell that professional what needs to be done when they get there, then the less trips they have to make, the less times they got to run to distribution to pick up a part or whatever it might be. So getting data out to people and getting them knowledge before they roll trucks is actually sustainable, right? It keeps trucks off the road and optimizes routes and things like that.
Yeah. So what would a fully sustainable pool look like? How would it be different from your typical pool that, is just kind of putting all the old stuff on it, old technology, if you will?
Yeah. So I guess the things we talked about are kind of what's available today. If you ask me to kind of look into the future without giving too much away, talking a little bit more generally from a water perspective, it's a challenging one, right? The water comes out of the tap or it comes from the sky, but we at Fluidra are looking for big goals, right? We set large goals for pools that don't use energy. And then what does it take to actually get there? And from a water perspective, it's, looking at a little bit more from a property perspective than just a pool perspective. And is there water around your property at your house or your gardening or your irrigation that, especially with treatment systems now and in the future, can we save more water, conserve more water, reuse water? Maybe not from your toilets, but from other places, right? Dishwashers or some other place. So I think that's the type of view that we have to really be progressive and to drive both products and the industry. Electricity. There's again Southern California. We've got a lot of solar panels on everybody's roofs. Everybody knows there's peaks and valleys in how much demand is out there. Can we use when there are lulls in demand from the house? Can we use that solar energy on the pool and tying those systems more together so that you don't have a home that's trying to be sustainable and a pool that's trying to be sustainable, but they don't talk to each other? In the future, does that make sense? It doesn't seem to, right? And the chemicals again, back to. There are things to a little bit more extreme than we usually see in the U.S. Biopools in Europe are somewhat popular, and they don't use little to no chemicals. They're They have their positives and they have their challenges, of course. But if you're really looking for a fully net zero type of sustainable pool in the future, what role do those type of things play? What role does non-chemical sanitization play? And how do you offset the power that some of these things? Well, we can do a good job of offsetting the chemicals, but it takes power to run it. So they all have to interact and they all have to work together. It is not a single product. And in my opinion, maybe not even the pool working alone, but working a little bit more with the home site is more of an integrated system.
So what have been some of the main challenges in implementing, a lot of these initiatives to be sustainable?
I think you could kind of break it down into two different components, right? One is a human component, and one is maybe more technical, logistical in nature. I think the technical and logistical one is obvious, right? If we're gonna, let's say our ambition is to move to a net zero pool, there's obvious technical hurdles we need to kind of overcome. Things like what Mark is talking about, like how do you get a property in a pool exchanging information and utilizing machine learning, AI, predictive behaviors to kind of automatically mold and meld each other to kind of create this sort of ultimate efficiency. Those are technical. When it comes to how we do business, there's logistical challenges between a plan to move to 100% renewable energy in our manufacturing and then kind of what it actually takes in the execution to get there, dealing with different countries, regulations, states of maturity in terms of their grid infrastructure. But those are all technical, logistical, where, it's a matter of time until you figure it out and you keep plugging away. The human component, I think what we come up against is, and this is a statement internally as well as maybe externally just about the industry at large. When you have a bunch of humans that are used to doing business in a certain way and you try to drive some change and new thinking and, hey, let's reconsider how we maybe look at the pool and the existing products out there and reconfigure how they can work better together to be more efficient. Or change the way we kind of manage our supply chain. There's just kind of the inertia you got to kind of swim against the tide with to kind of start building momentum, right? So I think, as we've been kind of at this, I'd say with really sustained focus for the last 5 years, a lot of the challenges have been as simple as that. Just business has been moving in one direction for years and years and years. And now we're trying to sort of shine a light on like, hey, let's start putting more focus here. Let's kind of make a change and a shift here. Let's kind of change how we bring products to market and update some processes. And there's just kind of that natural momentum that wants to say, no, let's keep going this way, the way we've always done it. But similar to the technical problems, it's a lot of times a matter of time, building the foundation, have that big win aspirational mindset, but be content with the small wins and you make progress.
Yeah. I always love what I love about swimming pool is it's so visual. I mean, if you put old pool, old equipment, and the homeowner side by side with, a new pool with updated equipment and the homeowner, you're going to have one homeowner that's bitching and complaining about how expensive and problematic it is. And you can't keep it clean and it runs all night. It's loud. It's all of these things. And if you've ever used that pool, you don't really like the experience. But over here, you've got this crystal clear pool that's quiet and the homeowner is at ease. It's like, no, the only time I come out here is to sort of interact with it and use it. Like I don't, it's not a problem. But you can visit both of those pools and you'll see, feel like you could see that right away what the difference is.
Yeah, I think Mark mentioned it, and I think it's worth kind of hitting it on the head. Part of the value proposition, I think, around this sustainability move is you're pushing for like get rid of incandescent lights and lean into LED lights, whether it's on a new build or whether it's a retrofit project, because then you're installing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights. Sanitization, forget chlorine, install a salt chlorinator plus an AOP unit, plus a mineral cartridge. You're talking about two pieces of equipment that go in a pool that have that sustainability value proposition, but it's also from, selfishly a manufacturer side or a pool professional side. It's allowing them to sell and install and charge more products that go on the pool that will someday need to be serviced and replaced. And so, to every new build, add that cover, right? It increases your margin. It adds to the overall ticket. So there's like a compelling case just from a dollars and cents perspective that continuing to move pools into this more aesthetic and sustainable direction helps drive more revenue out of each project. So I think that's kind of one of the upsides here. And
Yeah, because it's not like you're trading this stuff in for the same product. It's like you're getting a better looking light, you're getting a quieter pump, you're getting a cover that's also safe. You know what I mean? If you've got this cover on the pool, and you have little ones, maybe it helps with that, but you're saving the water loss. You know what I mean? These are all like, if anybody's ever owned a pool, these are huge things. And if you don't own a pool, it's hard for you to understand. But when you own a pool, especially a used pool, you know what I mean? Where you're taking on somebody else's bullshit, where it's like, dude, oh my God, this thing is a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
Then you really understand, what we're talking about.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So how do you see your company's sustainability efforts evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's hard to say because it's super dynamic. Like we were talking about earlier, things might change, policies might change. So from specifics, I don't know, but I think kind of if you just speak at a high level, no question, you see the company continue to put more focus just on the business, make sure our supply chain is as efficient as possible, make sure we're reducing water consumption, energy consumption, all that as we kind of bring products to market, run our operations. That's kind of a no-brainer. We'll continue to move in the right direction there. I think also as we continue to put out new products, you'll continually see increased focus on what those products do to help contribute to a more sustainable pool experience. So, initially that might be product improvements that create a more efficient pump or chlorinator or something. But over time, I wouldn't be surprised to see products that come out that kind of are more wholly scoped out and ideated around the concept of sustainability, performance, cost savings, right? So that's more kind of central to what we put out there. And then kind of, leveraging what Mark was talking about, I do think you see increased focus on how the pool participates within the larger home ecosystem. So perhaps that's kind of led with next generation automation systems. Perhaps that's led with sort of how we tie into kind of rooftop solar, water exchange between the two entities. I don't know, but I do think you start to see kind of a more holistic picture of the pool and products that support this kind of integrated view of how the two work together.
Do you guys have any training or anything to help the pool professional in how to actually sell, some of these products? Because, I love everything that you're saying. And I think that, people listening to this, take note, because this is stuff that, when you're talking to the homeowner and you're trying to upgrade their equipment, or you're selling a new pool build or doing a remodel, a lot of this stuff, needs to be talked about. Because I believe that somebody's going to get that purchased, one way or another. Like, it might as well be you and your company. But I just wanted to see if you guys have any additional information for people.
It's definitely a big focus right now. So I think if if you're a customer of ours, you're starting to see it come through at trade shows and brochures and videos on our website in bits and pieces. But I think you can just bet that, coming next season and seasons after that, that there'll be more emphasis and more support in terms of preparing pool pros to talk about this stuff. Right. Our goal is to kind of have marketing activities that get consumers thinking about it, get pool owners thinking about this stuff and asking questions. And then on the other side, we need to make sure we're preparing the pros to talk about it. And, quite honestly, I think we got some work to do there. But the conversations, activities are happening. And kind of like I said, it's small wins can be powerful and help drive momentum. And we're kind of in that building momentum stage in terms of how we get this message out there in a bigger way.
Yeah. And I mean, people, you got to do your due diligence, right? I mean, there's tons of stuff on your website, knowing these manuals. And I mean, you've invested in us at Pool Chasers and taking, an hour and a half, 2 hours out of your day to talk about this stuff on a show. I mean, every single one of the things you guys have talked about, this is stuff that is useful in preparing a good email or preparing sort of that sales pitch when it comes to that stuff. So I'll wrap it up where people can find you.
Information can be found at fluidra.com. You go up to the top navigation, there's a responsibility tab. Click on that, and then from there you can access more information about what we're doing from the environmental side, as well as social and governance elements of our overall ESG program. But I would say be on the lookout for more information at the trade shows this upcoming season, because we want to make sure that all this work we're putting in on the back end is starting to get surfaced and be visible as we kind of reach out and talk with our customers. And when they ask us what's new, this is going to be one of the things we're talking about.
Yeah. So speaking of trade shows, are you going to be at all of the major trade shows?
We'll be at all of the major ones, starting in with AC in January is one of the biggest ones in places where we put our best foot forward. But yeah, you'll find us pretty much at every trade show you go to this year.
Looking forward to seeing you guys. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate both of you for taking the time to be on the show. This was a really good talk. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners have too. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate the time.